Chapter 61. Kill them all. Cross hands were tougher than others as he drew the bowstring all year round. There were many calluses on them. Back then, when he encountered the black-scaled wolf pack and faced an entire day and night of slaughter, his hands didn't tremble as much as they did now. One could imagine what kind of fierce battle he had experienced before Xu Qing returned. Moreover, she must have encountered someone she couldn't resist, which was why her fingers were like this. At the same time, she was also heavily injured. From Luan Tooth's weak and exhausted expression, it was clear that she had used up all her strength. When he entered the campsite, everyone's reaction, as well as those unfamiliar faces, as well as a large number of camp leaders outside the residence, as well as the cold gaze of the guy with the three-stroke beard were all telltale signs. All of this allowed Xu Qing to know who his enemy was. However, the more it was like this, the more uneasy he felt. Under his questioning, Cross and Luan Tooth also told him the reason in a low voice. In his early years, Captain Lei wasn't a scavenger, but an ordinary man in a city far away from here. Due to his aptitude, he had once served as a guard in the city he lived in. It was also at that time that he obtained his cultivation method. He was also recognized by the city lord and had a fiancée, who was his childhood sweetheart. Everything was beautiful, but everything changed with the arrival of a convoy. Cross and Luan Tooth didn't know what exactly happened either. They only heard that Captain Lei got drunk once many years later and mumbled that everything was gone. His fiancée died, and his cultivation was crippled after he completed his revenge. He barely survived and left his hometown, cultivating again with great difficulty and becoming a scavenger. Decades later, he became an old man with one foot in the grave. Captain Lei, who originally had the intention to retire, had let go of everything until, when he was at the campsite, he saw the foreign convoy had a person in it. The person who had destroyed everything he had didn't die and lived until now. However, Captain Lei didn't choose to continue taking revenge. He seemed to be worried that he would implicate others, so he bitterly chose to escape and hurried to Santao City. However, he didn't know that his enemies were already aware of his existence. Hence, the camp leader arranged for people to capture Captain Lei from Santao City a few days ago, and gift him to his collaborator, who was also Captain Lei's enemy in his early years. I saved someone under the camp leader, Luan Tooth, and I came back 2 days ago and he secretly told us about it. Only then did we know about it and immediately headed over to save them. However, we failed. At the camp leader's place, I saw Captain Lei's enemy. The other party's foundation had also collapsed before and he was able to rebuild his foundation like Captain Lei. Although his foundation was higher than Captain Lei's, it wasn't by much, Cross said through gritted teeth. We have also made some inquiries about this convoy. Behind them is a mysterious organization called Night Dove. This organization is very large and has scattered countless convoys. In the entire Nanhuang continent, they travel through various scavenger campsites and small cities, trading with the camp leaders and city lords, buying people to be treasure nurturers, Luan Tooth said in a low voice. Camp leader, the convoy Xu Qing's breathing was hurried and the killing intent in his eyes was extremely intense. He felt as though there was a ball of raging fire burning crazily in his body, causing his eyes to turn bloodshot. There was also overflowing anger in them as he turned and walked toward the main gate. Behind him, Cross and Luan Tooth were a little anxious and hurriedly advised, "Kid, we have to consider this matter at length. We need to cooperate with the other scavengers. This involves missing people for many years. There's no need." The instant Xu Qing spoke, he raised his right hand and grabbed the longsword on his back, swinging it fiercely. The longsword instantly transformed into a cold beam of light that shot toward the gate of the courtyard like a rainbow. The instant it entered, the tremendous force contained within erupted with a bang. The gate of the courtyard shattered into pieces, revealing a camp leader's car eavesdropping behind the gate. This person held a dagger in his hand and his eyes were wide open. His chest was directly penetrated by the longsword and he fell to the ground. As he spat out blood, his expression was filled with horror. As for that longsword, the power it contained was too great. After it pierced through the guard's body, it headed straight for the alley entrance in the distance. As the man with the three-stroke beard let out a tragic cry, it pierced into his thigh at lightning speed, nailing him deep into the ground. The two casualties caused the outside world to fall silent for a short period of time. After that, whistling and low roars immediately erupted. The 7 to 8 guards from the camp's main residence who were surrounding the area also got closer. As Cross and Luwan Tooth's expressions changed, Xu Qing dashed out like a bolt of lightning. The moment he walked out of the gate, his right hand grabbed the dagger of the dead guard, and he arrived in front of one of them with a single step. He didn't even bother to take a look. The instant he walked past him, Xu Qing lifted the dagger and slit open his neck. Fresh blood spurted out in all directions, but the redness couldn't be compared to Xu Qing's eyes. In his bloodshot eyes, the image of Captain Lei in the campsite personally seeing his enemy from back then surfaced. However, he couldn't help but suppress the bitterness and grief in his heart. This caused Xu Qing's killing intent to grow even stronger. He abruptly turned and punched out, landing on the chest of the guard who was about to attack. With a muffled boom, the man's 7 orifices bled, and his internal organs collapsed. His body then rolled backwards like a kite with a broken string and landed on the ground. At the same time, 3 other people pounced over with killing intent. Among these 3 people, 2 were at the 5th level and 1 was at the 6th level. However, the moment they got close, Xu Qing waved his right hand and the black iron stick instantly flew out. It directly pierced through the person's skull and the dagger in his hand gleamed coldly as he crouched down. He then appeared in front of the 6th level person and ruthlessly swung it toward the neck. There was a click sound. The 6th level person's reaction was also very fast. A spirit energy barrier immediately manifested to block Xu Qing's dagger, but it couldn't stop his strength. As Xu Qing's eyes turned red, he suddenly pushed the man, causing him to retreat continuously. Amidst the rumbling sounds, the man was directly pushed against the wall by Xu Qing and pressed down forcefully. Under the horrors, the dagger cut through the spirit energy barrier and stabbed into the neck, piercing through it in an instant. The force was so great that the wall behind the corpse also collapsed with a bang. Xu Qing, who was standing there, turned his head. The killing intent in his eyes seemed to have materialized. This caused the hearts of the remaining 4 to 5 camp leaders' guards to tremble and their eyes narrowed. Even though their cultivation levels were at the 6th level, they still trembled and retreated one after another. Even the agonizing cry of the guy with the 3-stroke beard stopped for a moment. His countenance couldn't help but turn pale and anxious. However, the slaughter was far from over. Xu Qing's body suddenly charged forward. The 3 to 5 guards' minds were buzzing and they wanted to speed up their retreat, but it was still too late. Xu Qing's speed was too fast. After he got close in an instant, his left hand directly struck the top of a guard's head. After the guard's head shattered with a bang, his body moved like a ghost and strangely appeared beside another person. As the dagger in his hand slashed past, he moved again and arrived in front of the 3rd person. This person trembled and let out a cry of despair. He opened his arms and wanted to hug Xu Qing, wanting to perish together with him. However, what awaited him was a violent bump from Xu Qing's forehead. The roar came to an abrupt end and the guard's forehead caved in. The moment he breathed his last, Xu Qing's body suddenly retreated and knocked into another person. The dagger in his hand kept stabbing out behind him. 1 slash, 2 slashes, 3 slashes. He only lifted his head after he knocked the person into another wall. Danging sounds rang out as all the guards fell to the ground one after another. All of them had died and there were no complete corpses. After killing so many people in a row, blood splattered onto the ground. Under the sunlight that was nearing sunset in the afternoon, the bloodstains on the ground were a shocking sight. When the light landed on Xu Qing's body, it caused the blood intent in his body to fill the air. When combined with his bloodshed, he looked like a demonic god. It was also because of the massacre here that many scavengers who lived nearby immediately walked out and gasped when they saw this scene. It's Thekid, Huey, Si Saw Strong, Thasu who died are all the camp leader's men. He's going to fight against the camp leader. Cross and Luwan Tooth also supported each other as they walked out. When they saw the corpses all over the ground and Xu Qing's figure and the blood on the ground under the sunlight, their hearts trembled intensely. Amidst the commotion, Xu Qing walked toward the trembling man with the 3-stroke beard. On the way, he kept the dagger and iron stick until he was in front of the man with the 3-stroke beard. The man with the 3-stroke beard shivered as cold sweat continuously flowed down his back. It was as though the intense pain in his body couldn't surpass the terror in his heart. He wanted to struggle, but the sword that was nailed to his thigh made it impossible for him to move at all. He could only let out a sharp cry with despair in his eyes. "Kid, you are going to." Xu Qing grabbed the longsword on his leg and slashed upward ruthlessly. The sharp blade slid down the man's thigh, past his stomach and chin. As fresh blood spurted out, the man's body convulsed violently as he let out a mournful cry and died. After doing all this, Xu Qing was expressionless, only his killing intent rose. Under the bloodlight reflected by the sunlight, he walked forward step by step. The scavengers, who were watching everything from the front, also felt their hearts trembling. When they saw Xu Qing approaching, they immediately retreated to avoid him. They had seen ruthless people before, but most of them were adults, and they were even desperados. For a 14 or 15-year-old youth like Xu Qing to be able to kill so calmly, and from the looks of it, he wasn't willing to give up. It was extremely rare. The direction he's going is the camp leader's residence. As everyone saw the direction Xu Qing was heading in, the sound of heavy breathing instantly became a roar in their minds, causing all the scavengers to follow behind in unison. From afar, Xu Qing was walking at the very front, rushing toward the camp leader's residence. Behind him, a large group of scavengers quickly followed. When even more scavengers heard about this, they also gathered. Other than that, there were also guards and strangers from the caravan in the camp's main residence. They suddenly moved closer to Xu Qing, and there were experts among them who wanted to kill him. At that moment, in the camp leader's residence, the camp leader was drinking tea as he chatted and laughed with an old man with a cold and arrogant expression who was wearing a brocade robe. "Mr. Sun, you don't have to worry. The matter will be resolved in the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. No matter how good scavengers are, they aren't a match for us sect cultivators. I originally planned to nurture this kid well. If he's used well, I'll recommend him to the sect. However, since he's so blind, I'll just kill him. It's better if you can capture him alive." The old man in brocade picked up the teacup and sipped. After he put it down, he calmly spoke.